Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're tackling a really big topic, the Trump tax and trade policies.
Yeah, a lot to unpack there. Benefits, drawbacks, global effects.
Exactly. Our mission is basically to look at what the sources say about the actual impacts, the good and the bad, without, taking a political stance.
Just laying out the information as reported.
Right. So let's start with the reported upsides. The sources mentioned the 2017 tax reforms, those big corporate tax cuts specifically.
They were expected to stimulate GDP?
Yeah, the estimates were, about 0.8 to 1.2% GDP increase over a decade?
That's right. Which sounds small, maybe, but for an economy this size, it's actually quite a bit of activity. Could mean jobs, investment.
And speaking of investment, that was another key goal, wasn't it? Encouraging businesses to invest more.
Absolutely. Lowering the tax burden was meant to free up capital, boost net profits, and ideally make companies want to expand, build, invest.
Okay. And then there were the tariffs. How do they fit into this pro side?
Well, two main ways, according to the sources. First, revenue generation. Right.
Projections were pretty massive, somewhere between $2 and $5 trillion over 10 years.
Wow, trillion. That's significant potential income for the government.
It is. But it wasn't just about the money. The other big goal was supporting domestic industries.
How so? By making imports more expensive.
Exactly. Reducing competition from cheaper foreign goods. The hope was to protect jobs here at home, especially in those foundational sectors.
Okay, so a boost to GDP, more business investment, potential tariff revenue, and protecting local jobs. That sums up the reported benefits.
That's the picture painted by those sources, yes.
But, okay, here's where it gets really interesting, as you mentioned. The flip side.
Yeah.
What do the sources tell us about the drawbacks? Let's start with consumers.
Right. This is probably the most direct impact people felt. Increased cost of living.
Because of the tariffs on imports.
Precisely. When imports cost more, product prices tend to go up. Analyses suggested this could raise average family expenses by, well, quite a range, actually.
How much are we talking? The figures cited were anywhere from about $1,100 to maybe $5,200 per year.
That's a huge range. But even at the low end, $1,100 isn't nothing.
Definitely not. It highlights how tricky it is to predict the exact effect on household budgets. But the direction was generally upward pressure on costs.
Okay, so higher costs for families. What about the bigger economic picture? Any long-term concerns raised?
Yes, definitely. Several analyses, including from the CBO, that's the Congressional Budget Office, and places like Wharton, Deutsche Bank, they pointed towards a potential reduction in GDP long-term.
Wait, a reduction after the initial boost?
Potentially, yes. Estimates varied, like 0.8% down to even 6% lower GDP in the long run, plus concerns about increased public debt and a higher risk of recession.
So short-term gain potentially leading to long-term pain.
That was the risk highlighted in those particular studies, and tied into that was trade uncertainty.
Businesses not knowing what's coming next.
Exactly. Policy changes, threats of tariffs, retaliations. It makes planning really hard. Sources suggest this reduced international investment and kind of messed with supply chains. Companies had to scramble.
Okay, that makes sense. Difficult to invest when the rules keep changing.
Yeah.
And this wasn't just domestic, right? These ripples went global.
Oh, absolutely. Big time. Europe and Japan, for instance, reportedly saw GDP hits maybe 0.1 to 0.7% lower.
Which led to pushback.
You bet. Demands for negotiation, but also countermeasures, retaliatory tariffs on American goods, Things like bourbon, jeans.
Tit for tat.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And then closer to home, Canada and Mexico faced pressure, especially over things like digital taxes. There were some negotiations, temporary exemptions.
So a lot of tension even with close partners.
Right. And some countries were really in the crosshairs. Brazil, India, New Zealand tagged as high target, meaning like over half their exports to the U.S. faced new tariffs.
Wow. That puts enormous pressure on their economies.
Huge pressure, challenged their general more liberal trade stances, forced them to rethink things, maybe retaliate or renegotiate.
So wrapping this all up, it seems these policies had really complex, often contradictory effects both at home and abroad.
Definitely not simple. And maybe that leads to a final thought for you, the listener. If we connect all this, It really raises a fundamental question, doesn't it?
Which is,
How do nations strike that balance, between trying to boost their own domestic economy, protect jobs, raise revenue, and navigating this incredibly complex, interconnected global trade system, especially considering both the immediate effects and those longer-term, sometimes unforeseen consequences?
a really important question to think about. How do you balance national needs with global realities?
Yeah.
Something for all of us to consider.